you know, art is a deregulated market. It's actually more deregulated than drugs are. Drugs have a wholesale price, they have a street price, they tend to be relative to the location you're in terms of like supply chains, etc., right? So there's actually like some sort of regulation to the market. There's always a market price globally. Black community, especially in the US, has a representation of between like less than 5% within the art market. Women make up 50% of 50% of artists globally, and they have a share of 15%. That is it's insane. Yeah. I also find it incredibly ironic that from guys and women who have essentially come up through a disruptive medium, which is graffiti, and like, you know, 30, 40 years ago being shunned by traditional galleries, and you still within some parts of the day and some institutions do, but like, you know, have spent all this time being disruptive and then finally have like been accepted and it's become a bit more of the status quo now, right? That they want to have a go at a kid who is literally being equally disruptive within his own right, within his own generation.
Welcome, Louis. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Thank you for coming down, traveling all the way from Paris to do this.
Paris got in like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you coming down. So tell the people, you know, who you are, what you do. I know you've got an extensive story to tell, you know, some interesting insight into the art space.
Yeah, what do I do is always like an interesting question. Because people really struggle, even people that I work with struggle to define exactly what it is. But I'm essentially a creative director, manager, agent, writer, curator, artist liaison. Some would say sometimes an artist in my own right. God, I'm trying to think if was there anything else I put on my bio?
Loads of things, but you know, obviously
I connect dots though a lot of the time. Like I do a lot of like project management, production. I like to say that I make shit happen. Yeah, make shit happen, get shit done.
Yeah, I like that because it basically incorporates everything that you've done before. You know, putting that all together is sort of something different in the art space because, you know, everybody's specific in their key roles. So that's amazing. So you entered the art world through graffiti. You know, how did that shape, you know, your career so far?
Where I grew up playing, I love basketball, hip hop, and everything that kind of goes alongside the cliches, right? And
was And One a part of that?
Oh yeah, hugely. And I actually met the professor.
Really?
Not the Basel just gone, but the Basel before, and because I did this event for Nike, James, and we did all the artwork for the outside, all the mural stuff. And he came to the event, and I was super gassed, dude.
He's like street ball hero legend.
Yeah, we chatted, and then like we exchanged Instagrams and stuff. And he's like, "Oh man, you know, when you're in LA, because you know I flipped my time between New York, LA, Miami." And he was like, "Yeah, if you ever want to like play a bit of pickup game, that's
trippy."
Which is cool. I used to play basketball for England under 13 when I was a kid, so like I can play, but I'm a little bit rusty now. I still play sometimes with a few other artists in New York. We go down to the Marcy courts, but yeah, it was quite a thing for me back then. Yeah. So yeah, essentially, all that kind of cliche mid-90s hip hop, like anything that fell in within that genre. And I played basketball with, well, he was a whole school generation older than me, was an artist called Word to Mother, who I admire dearly. He's one of the, arguably just such a natural artist when you look at some of his illustrations and his fine art pieces that have progressed. But anyway, I kind of really looked up to him, aspired to him. And he was always tagging and painting graffiti. But then my life kind of took a crazy shift into, I don't know, explain it. I don't want this podcast to be delved too much into that side of my past, but I took a kind of like wrong turn, as you would say, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of fell off of certain things, and like I found myself on the run, and then I kind of fell off art, and just things from the ages of like 13 through to like 19 was kind of a dark period. And I went on the run, and when I came back off the run, I kind of was in the city, and I was like, I don't really know what to do with my life. I need to do something a little bit more legit.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, I bought a house at a young age. Maybe I could do real estate. So I did that for like 2-3 months, but then I got reconnected with, who we connected through was Andy.
Yeah.
Andy and Terry, who run Secret Walls, they rented a property off me down in Clapton. I forget what the studios was called now. Anyway, so I got connected to them, and I was like, and they were like, do you know, they knew where I came from. They're like, Word to Mother? And I was like, Word to Mother? And then they were like, Tom Parks. And I was like, dude, yes. I loved him. I grew up with him and admired him, and like, took a lot of inspiration from him, and really idolized him, to be honest. And then me and Tom reconnected, me and Word to Mother reconnected as a result of them. So I found myself leaving the kind of real estate world, which I had no business being in anyway.
Yeah.
I came from like, a kind of street kid culture. And so I just had my reconnection with creativity then, and like graffiti and street art had just started really becoming like commercialized, I say around about then, kind of late 2010s. Like people would obviously been doing it for over a decade and stuff, like the movement, but it really started becoming like commercialized with brands, and companies would jump on the bandwagon, I suppose, for that like cool factor. And then through Word to Mother, I met like Ben I and D-Face, Banksy, like all these like huge up and coming, or like established street art.
Were they up and coming and around that period?
They weren't even actually, I don't know why I just said up and coming. They were established. Like Ben had already sold a piece to, David Cameron had bought a piece of his work and sold it to gifted it to Obama, and it was in the White House, and D-Face had already had like critically acclaimed work and gallery shows across the world. So they definitely were already established.
Yeah. So
I was very fortunate enough to be in the right place, right time to kind of, because I was still early 20s then.
Wow, that's a lot of experience and, energy that's around you around that age just to inspire this situation.
It seems to be a theme of my life. Yeah. Right? Like even when I was a street kid, I kind of managed to find my way with like, people that were running the show. Yeah. Essentially, and being taken under the wing. I think I always gravitate towards like the elders, I suppose. I always say, even though I'm a millennial, I feel like I have a Gen X heart.
Most of us do.
Yeah, especially just due to like what my interests are, and what I like, and musically and film and everything artistically. Yeah. So that's kind of how I then like evolved into. I actually started doing like video work, started filming. Like Ben was one of the people I started filming originally, and D, and I started doing these like kind of short, like 2 to 3 minute long videos. Well, actually, before that, I worked with Secret Walls and Monorex, and we did a lot of big commercial campaigns. And I learned a lot from then in terms of the corporate world. And, like I say, back then it was just, I wouldn't like to say that, I learned a lot in terms of integrity back then. And, I think everybody at a young age creatively has a tendency to sacrifice a certain amount of integrity just to put food on the table. Yeah. And it doesn't feel good, but you learn a lesson real quick, and weirdly, Chantel Martin said this. She's a phenomenal artist. like black line drawing. She's great. Not necessarily from the street art world, but she's a great artist. But she said something about, like, to me one time, she was like, you know, you live your life like where your yeses outweigh your no's, right? There's this balance. And then all of a sudden, like, those no's start rising and outweighing those yeses.
Yeah.
Like, you get to a point where you can say no.
100%.
So I learned a lot in that corporate world, and that's when I met Jamal Edwards from SBTV, because that's how it comes full circle about how spraying bricks. Yeah. So I go under spraying bricks online, right? That's essentially like what I would maybe call the agency name. But spraying bricks came about because originally I'd met Jamal, and we talked about, he was like, you know, I want to bring like a art and culture side to SBTV. Wow. You know, not just do the music. I want to do dance. I want to do street art. I want to do contemporary art. And I developed this whole like 6-part pilot series for him. Yeah. Where it's called Spraying Bricks. Did all the logo design, everything, like the whole like aesthetic of it. And but it got to a point because SBTV was quite big at that point.
Yeah, it just shot and went crazy.
He went crazy. And, you know, God rest his soul, like, love and death, he was a real integral part of my ethos and my career. Yeah. He then sat me down one time and was like, hey, by the way, my corporate want to rebrand it like this. They want me to be the face of it. And he was like, I know you might not be comfortable with that because you put all this work into branding it like it is now. I just want to bring that to the table to you and see how you feel. And I was like, I'd be real with you, Jamal. I was like, that's not going to resonate. You have no idea about our culture. Yeah. You have no idea about graffiti. Yeah. And even the difference between graffiti and street art or public art. You know, you don't have an understanding of it in that way. And I just feel like it will lack it, like, authenticity. Yeah. So he gave me the option. He was like, yeah, cool. Well, if you want to just run with it and release yourself, I'm like, I fully support you. Yeah. And, you know, I think that says a lot about his character, and it really gave me a lot of confidence in myself to just like release that on my own. And then that kind of, from there, it kind of developed into, I had this production company and I do a lot of like branded content because Harley Davidson picked up one of the videos one time, and they're like, hey, we want to do something at Art Basel and where you film artists like painting tanks. And that then developed me into getting into like content strategy because I worked with a really great director at that point, Progopi. And we had a meeting with Harley Davidson. We kind of looked into to their metrics, and you know, we were like, oh man, maybe we can get them to give us a bike and we'll tour around America and do these spraying bricks videos across the States. And we took them this touring idea, and essentially they didn't go for that specifically, but what they ended up going for and how this whole thing developed is we came up with a whole strategy where we took the bike street glide, because they barely had any like influence on the touring market in like Europe and the Middle East and Asia. So for the EMEA market, I was 24 at the time, dude. I had this production company and I had this massive campaign. It was just me, a photographer Jake, and my then assistant Juan Toppin, who has gone on to do amazing things as well. Now I took him out of university. Wow. Like, he got to graduate early because they had this like crazy campaign that I was doing, and they just couldn't believe that he had this opportunity. But we took this bike and we started in Jordan and went all the way through the Middle East, Northern Africa, all the way from every single country in Europe. But it wasn't related to art. It was just video and content strategy. It literally had nothing to do with art. So I found myself in that situation just off the back of doing art and spraying bricks. And I did that for a few years. Did some stuff for some fashion clients, and it just felt soulless. I still was detached from what I loved, which was graffiti and art. You know, and how I then found myself like flipping it back around again is that like I still on the side was like looking after certain artists. They would send me contracts and I would manage certain projects. They'd bring things to me, and Ben Iron at the time was living in California, and he was getting kicked out of the country. Yeah, he was getting kicked out of the country on some, like, breaking some certain visa rules, and he had married an American, but it wasn't quite done officially, or he did it a few days after his visa had expired, etc. So he was coming back, and he wanted to make a big statement about coming back. It's like, what can we do? And so we did the largest painting on the ground in Hackney Wick.
Wow.
Which at the time Hackney Wick had more artists per square mile than anywhere else in the world, right? So it was a really important, like, stamp for Ben to be like, hey, I'm back in the UK. A lot of things went a little wrong with that project in the end, but I shopped it. It took 18 months to shop that project right as well, because we needed to get it funded, right? So me and, again, my assistant at the time was Juan, and we put together a whole pitch deck, and we went to the space. We managed to secure a space through a rep out in Hackney Wick, and we started shopping it to different agencies. I put together a syndication list, was shopping it to different agencies, different companies, different brands, and we had a few people that would, like, bite on it, but, like, even at that point, I'd realized, like, I didn't want to, what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't want to compromise the integrity of the art, right? I really was, like, at that point in my career, I was really focused on you support the artist, you get the artist to do what the artist does, right? Like, I can get a plumber in to do my bathroom and kitchen, right? And I can tell him I need my bathroom and kitchen done, but I'm not going to tell him how to do the pipe work. So that's essentially the ethos that I carried, or the analogy that I carried with an artist. So we even had a bite from an agency that worked with EasyJet, and they wanted to take on the project, but they wanted to brand it all orange and put like their logo on it and everything like that. And it was like, fuck's sake, like, and it was just a huge disconnect. So it took nearly 18 months to get it finally sponsored. And I worked with someone else, another friend of mine in the industry, who connected me with Zippo. And Zippo, the lighter company, they were trying to rebrand themselves because they obviously smoking wasn't cool, and they're not allowed to, like, promote smoking as such. It's supposed to be a utility piece. So they just gave us the money to do the project with no branding. They just wanted a bit of video content, and we ended up doing a collaborative, like, Zippo lighter as well. And then that carried on further. So I was from Ben Iron, and like a year later, I ended up doing a project with them and D-Face as well. And that essentially broke me. I was like, this is what I enjoy doing. Like, it's the art. And totally left the video content production company again. I was just like, I can't do it. Closed the company. I ended up, to be honest, anyway, at that time I was young, I ran up a massive fucking tax bill, and
I could imagine.
I learned a huge lesson. I ran up a massive VAT bill, and I couldn't pay it, so I liquidated the company. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Like, you got to try stuff. Sometimes you live and learn. Like, no one taught me. I didn't go to school. I didn't go to business school. Like, everything I learned came from, like maybe, well, other people that definitely didn't go to school or take the traditional route.
It's a trial and error, these things, especially in the industry. Even, like, similar to me, you go to school for a certain point in things, but, like, this business stuff, I think you have to get your hands dirty. And based on that journey, you've got your hands dirty as a whole. And, and talking about the integrity of everything, I think you've kind of just stuck to that. Hence why it's probably taking a little bit more of a lengthier time. But I think that purpose drives you in unique places where it's like, we need to work with this guy because he cares about the integral things in art, and especially.
100%. And even with business, things I did as a kid, and what led me to doing, like, certain things that may be illegal, like, I'm never hugely ashamed about it, because I feel like it taught me a lot about principles, loyalty, like you say, like, integrity. And some of it was some business sense. There was a lot of bureaucracy, contracts, agreements, again, like taxation, maybe, like, things, playing by the rules. Like, I feel like back then I was kind of playing like a pirate, and art is a deregulated market. It's actually more deregulated than drugs are. Drugs have a wholesale price, they have a street price, they tend to be relative to the location you're in terms of like supply chains, etc., right? So there's actually like some sort of regulation to the market. There's always a market price globally. But with art, it's not. Art is whatever the price you give it or whatever the value that someone is going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Which I always find super interesting. So that's why I feel like there was a natural transition there for me to move into the art world anyway.
Quite interesting.
As much as like having a fascination with it. You know, because even growing up as like loving graffiti and tagging, I never saw how that would progress into actual art or like art traditionally how I would have seen it back then. You know, White Cube Gallery and... you know, people where I'm from, like, it's not really a world that's open to us, right? Yeah. But do you know what changed? Because I saw this Bill Murray thing, and it was like, you know, what was the art that changed your life or like really like turned you or gave you a different perspective? And I always remember it. It was a school trip, and we were in Milan, and David LaChapelle, the photographer, and it's weirdly photography, because people talk to me about photographers a lot of the time, and I actually don't know, and I'm not clued up on photography too much as I am on any contemporary painter, oil painter, sculptor, or like street artist, or even the street artist. I don't really like using that term, but you know, muralist and contemporary artist, right, from my industry. But David LaChapelle did this exhibition called Jesus is My Homeboy. And there was a piece in there, and it was the Last Supper, and it was Jesus in the middle, like a representation of the original Last Supper, right? And it was just, I mean, admittedly it was Americanized, but I could see it. It was like a bunch of like drug dealers. They were all in a trap house, drug dealers and like dudes, and like they just had like all these kind of like paraphernalia laying around and all that. And I looked at that and I was like, whoa, that's like me and my brothers and stuff. And I was just like, whoa, that's like, that resonates with me. And I was like, that's art. And I was like, that's pretty fucking sick. I see like a representation of myself within this piece. And that's what then switched me. And I was like, art is kind of beautiful. And that's, so that happened when I was young. And that's when I think subconsciously, like that's always stuck with me, even though I took a different path and then kind of fell off a little bit and then came back on. So, that was... Sorry, that's quite a little side note.
No, that's quite interesting.
Digression, but that was the piece that like changed me. And it's funny because I don't like buying, like when you go to museums, like he had a show at Photographica, which is closed down now in New York. It had a retrospective, and they had that in when I ever go to a museum, I never buy a poster. I hate posters. I hate poster replicas. Like I hate Giclée prints. I hate digital prints. Like I think they lack any like. You know, when you do even like screen prints and lithographs, they have like a nuance
texture to it,
Yeah, there's like a nuance. It's done with paint, but like a digital print, it just like lacks any.
It feels
soulless, dude. It's
mass, like you're trying to sell it.
It's a poster. You know what I mean? It's not a print. But that being said, that's the only poster I've ever bought, and like it was at that gallery, and I was like, oh, I'll just buy this replica because it's like a good like reminder and representation of me. And I got it like professionally framed, and I've like, it's funny because I'm kind of eating my words because I've always like I hate digital print.
But it's funny how that's gravitate towards you, because even when I think about Last Supper, it's Jesus, but everybody else is flawed behind him, but he's still breaking bread with the flawed at the same time. So it's that's why when I'm thinking about it, it's like you talk about your past and these were your brothers. It's like I came from that, but you know, I still gravitated towards it because there's a positivity in it. This represents something within me, and I can grow from this. You know what I mean?
There's a light. That's a really good point. I'd be honest, I didn't really look at it that way. It was just more at the rep, but that's really interesting. You're right.
So
you're actually adding a new layer to my narrative there. No, I'm not going to steal it. I like the authenticity of mine,
I think about like a lot of stuff in through a spiritual lens sometimes, and just kind of see where the signs, because I feel as though like, I don't know how religiously inclined you are, but like God shows us moments of where we can, you know, make it. you know what I mean? So he'll give you glimpses of certain things. Like he'll put you next to a person, like your journey is spoken about, you know, being with D-Face, you know, meeting the guys from Secret Wars and stuff like that. He positions you into the vision that he has. And then when you see that piece, you're just like, oh, that used to be such and such. And you invest in it.
I'm not so much a religious, and I never was growing up. I was actually an atheist, but like I've turned into someone that's probably more agnostic, and I'm definitely spiritual. And it's funny, when you say that word, you immediately think some sort of burner hippie.
Yeah. I think it's grown beyond that.
But hopefully, I do hope that it has grown a little bit more beyond that.
Yeah.
Because I do believe in like energies. I believe in quantum entanglements, like the collision of energies. Like, you know, when you meet
that's a whole
people,
nother discussion we need to have.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's just funny. I used to use it as a chat up line. Yeah. I was like, oh, babe, we got like a quantum entanglement. And then like, so I remember one time I was like, oh yeah, it's a proven science. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, you know, I looked into it more. But it's true, because I feel like, especially, you know, I'm on the road you know, I just came from Paris. I was only in Paris for 4 days. And prior to that, I was in New York for 3 days. And then I was in Dallas for 10 days prior to that. And then I was in LA, and then I was in Miami. Like, I'm always on the road. And I realized, like, you know, I got friends that I grew up with that I've known since I was like 7, 8 years old. I've known like 30 years, right? And in this industry, and I always use Rabbi as a pure example for this, because back in 2012, Rabbi, he's an artist from LA, and he used to be part of a crew called Circle. He does this thing now called We Buy Souls, which is a super interesting concept piece that he's been like growing the last couple of years. But I met him in 2012 when he had a show. He was doing a show at D-Face's gallery, Stolen Space Gallery, which he had with his then wife Eve. Gallery's still going. It's just off of Brick Lane. And it was when him and Davey were part of this collective called Circle, and these do these kind of high-end fine art pieces, but they also come from graffiti and street art. And I went and assisted him on painting this mural on Leonard Street. And we met and we chatted and we just like really bonded, right? And I didn't see him for a while after that, but then when we did see each other again, it was just immediately there was like I don't know, there was like a flame ignited, right? And so I realized that like there's certain people I meet with in this industry, because we travel for the festivals, like mural season, shows, Basel, like all these kind of, you know, just in Paris with Beyond the Streets, and like, you know, there was people I hadn't seen in 10 years that like from London, like I saw Insa there, and I saw old Lazaridis photographer Ian Walcandy. I haven't seen him in donkeys. But there's this like immediate connection, because I feel like we're connected on a different frequency of the world. We see the world in a different light. Yeah, which is super interesting, because sometimes when I say that, I feel like very arrogant, but a lot of it is true. And like those people, I actually, even though I only see them a couple of times, maybe once every 5 years, and I've only ever spent, you know, not even like a handful of hours with this person, I have a connection with that person that can never be broken. I actually, a lot of them I trust more than some people I've known 30 years. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's a phenomenal blessing. And I think that's what like led me to like feeling like energy and spirituality, right? You know, I do truly believe that like, even it's not reincarnation, but I do truly believe that when we pass away, that the energy is then recycled into the world. Yeah,
I definitely believe that. It's funny, and it's so crazy that I was thinking about that this morning. Like, who was we before we are now in terms of reincarnation? I know this is like, we're talking in an art podcast, but now it's gone into a spiritual realm. Do you know what I mean? So I feel as though all that past information is installed in us to allow us to kind of take it further onto the next energies that we're going to transfer over.
And I feel that I'm you know, I wake up every day, you know, like I'm 8 years sober now as well, because I feel like
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, almost 8 years. It's 8 years on October 22nd, but like 7.5 years.
Yeah, we're almost there.
But I wake up every day. I'm so grateful for the world, that, like the life that I live. And I've gone through some crazy hardships, and I don't know what it is right now, but I really feel it internally. Like this year is going to be like an incredible year. There's going to be some changes, which I was telling you about the TV show and stuff like that. But you know, a lot of me more on the forefront, more on the front than in the back, maybe. But where was I going with that? But yeah, I do. I wake up very grateful every day, despite everything that I've been through. And,
Yeah.
I do okay. I don't have all the money in the world, but like I have such a loving community of people within the art world. And, I travel everywhere, and there's nowhere in the world that I couldn't, I know that maybe not so literal, but there is literally almost nowhere in the world I can go and not know someone, or not know someone who knows someone.
Yeah.
And be looked after and be taken care of. Yeah. And the things I've seen and have experienced because of this industry, because of this career, is it's things that money couldn't buy. Yeah. I'm eternally grateful. Yeah. Every day I'm eternally grateful for what I do.
No, I love that. You've taken such a alternative route into this art space, and there's other people who have gone through institutions, working at galleries and everything like that. And I sometimes, whilst I appreciate it, I feel as though it's the path to an old model, to path to repetitive things. How do you feel as though that industry is going? Do you think more and more people need to take alternative routes to get into the space?
Me and an artist I work with, Lauren YS, we did a residency at Yale University.
Oh, wow.
I didn't go to university, and like I know certain people in my family were very disappointed I didn't, because I did a summer camp at Oxford, St John's College, Oxford. I was going to do PPE, psychology, politics, and economics. Wow. Even though I was like a little shit, and I did these other things on the side. Like throughout my life, I've always had a duality.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm this thing here, but I'm also this thing here. And like, so we did this residency at Yale. We did this huge mural, and it's funny, there's a plaque with my name on the wall there.
Wow.
Which, from where I'm from, like thinking not going to go to university or go beyond living in just like a fucking council estate or something, or like just where we were, it was kind of phenomenal that I had to give these crit classes. So there was all these MFA students that were coming through that were paying like $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they were doing these abstract pieces, and they were trying to like over intellectualize them, which I thought was super interesting, because it was abstract, and like a lot of abstract is created on emotion. It's like usually things, for me, what I see is like, and I feel that about a lot of work in general, is like the reason like an explanation or a synopsis of a piece comes out retrospectively is because at the time you're creating it is like when you're letting loose, because there are emotions or a feeling that you can't necessarily express or articulate with words, right? Yeah. So anyway, we're sitting there, and then like there's this one kiddie, and this amazing piece he had created with some sort of chemical where the piece over years will start to deteriorate or erode and like change color and become iridescent. I forget what he used. I did write it down somewhere, but like I was just like, wow, that's so fucking cool. Like to have like it's essentially like an analog interactive piece.
Wow.
And he started talking about post-industrialization and all this, and I was like, whoa. I was like, do you feel? I was like, you feel forced, don't you? I was like, art doesn't necessarily have to have this over-intellectualized like synopsis or meaning to it. It could be just like an expression of a feeling, or you just wanted to have some fun. I feel like they were like really grasping at trying to find like a meaning, because they felt like that brought like value or purpose to that piece. Do I feel like traditional like institutions or programs are obsolete? I don't. I think there are certain people that come up through that. I just think there are alternatives for people that struggle with that structure. Yeah. Because the structure doesn't work for everybody. Traditional structure doesn't work for everybody. Some people need it, some people don't. It's really difficult to say. I mean, but we're also in a era of where the art market is kind of up on its arse at the moment, and we don't really know where it's going. I mean, there's you can see a few trends that are happening. I didn't come through a traditional route. I also don't like, there's always I think people also struggle, and it's not very well known that there's other areas of art where you don't have to be an artist, where you can actually have an involvement in an art career. You could be, you know, like, again, going back to our mutual friend, Andrew Kelly, you know, we always talk all the time, and we're like, you know, we manage a lot of artists that come from graffiti and public art or street art who didn't go the traditional routes. And we're like, well, there wasn't really, back then we kind of created that role because no one really had that, you know, no one really had a manager, because like I really like to take a holistic approach as well, where like I am a manager more than an agent. I'm not necessarily going out there getting you work. I'm just making sure everything is organized, making sure you're taken care of. And I really care about like where your career is essentially going to go, right? Like you have goals, and there's like try and work to goals. I have OCD, so like structure is super important to me. So that didn't exist. So we kind of like created that, and you do see like little things, but like there was that in like blue chip or like institutional art, I suppose. So I don't know. It's horses for courses. It's difficult to say. For me,
I mean, I think it varies, especially, you know, anybody who's trying to enter the space. It's like there is no true path in terms of how to make it. So it's like trial and error, I think, at all times. You know, a lot of the people in business, like I was listening to Emma Greed's book, and she was like, nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. Everyone's just, I want to do this. You can watch a bunch of videos as much as you want on YouTube, read the books and everything like that, but when you get on the ground, it's a different ball game, because you have to manage people.
Again, this goes back to why it's a deregulated market as well. You know what I mean? But there is something to be said also, like there has to be some sort of shift, just because like I like to look at like what's happening, and like there's a lot of like marginalized communities with the artwork, right? Like 85% of the market is still dominated by white dudes, you know, white men. You know, like the black community, especially in the US, has a representation of between like less than 5% within the art market. Women make up 50% of 50% of artists globally, and they have a share of 15%. That is it's insane. You know, so there is, and I do see shifts within the market, and you just have to be very careful, like people not getting tokenized a lot. So I still see that happening. You know,
I see that a lot.
I mean, I can sit here and talk. I'm a white dude, right? Like I do understand. I'm a white English speaking dude. So like, what do I know about the struggle of that? But I do I do like to think I try and use my privilege enough in that where I can maybe lean it into certain ways where I feel like certain people or certain artists that I work with are kind of being shunned because of like either their race, their gender, their sexuality, and try and do what I can as an ally. I haven't got it all figured out. I probably still fuck up as well. So it's just figuring that out too. But it's a shame, because I do also feel like if you have the opportunity and you live in that and you can leverage being tokenized to bring you to a next point, maybe you do take that, right? Like it's like if someone's giving you a handout for some alternative reason, and then that's, again, it's a balance between your integrity,
the yeses and the nos,
the yeses and the nos, you know, and then like going back full circle and talking about like corporate projects and like sacrificing like or like compromising integrity. You know, people sometimes be like, oh, I can't believe you would take money from that corporation. My ethos, and it's just my opinion, but there's definitely certain companies and certain people I want to work with. Like I remember I got hit up by someone to buy a certain piece from a certain artist that I work with, and it was come from that Martin Shkreli, who bought the AIDS pill and like jacked it up, and he also bought the Wu-Tang, and I was like 100% not selling anything to that guy. You know, but then there's other companies that like, you know, certain like brands that like, you know, maybe all their ethics are not necessarily good in terms of maybe workforce or something, but like if they're going to give me the money to do what I want to do, and I just sometimes feel like a bit like Robin Hood. You know, like I'll take that money and I'll distribute it to artists in a way that I feel like is deserved. And like, I don't know, who's me to like pass judgment, but if it's coming my way, I'll do my best to see if I can distribute that. So there's like, it's finding a balance. It's difficult. Like,
I think artists
morally difficult.
I think artists do struggle with the balance of not only in getting the integral projects and brands, but they also struggle with the fact that a lot of them want to get into certain galleries, but they feel as though like brand deals might compromise situations because some galleries turn their nose to people who work with brands. You know, how do they find that balance 100%. On that side?
It's hard, and that's difficult, you know, and it's funny is because of the way the market is and the fact that like I feel like galleries aren't transitioning or trying to resonate or like move with the times is even forcing that harder. Right, because now we've led into like fast fashion art, and there's certain artists that like, God love them, but I see the work they're doing and I'm just like, oh, this is fast fad fashion art, you know. Thinking of whether I should name some, but
not too heavily. But you can talk about
there's
it.
like there's just a couple of artists that I'm just like, well, there's like I don't see longevity in their work as such, right? And
you can definitely see it based on because of content creation and visibility. You can see what they're trying to latch on to.
They become hype beat artists essentially, and that's like it's funny because that's a kind of Dain.
That died quick. That's a
kind of Dain publication as well. Like this kind of, but there is a few artists that I actually, you know, because we spoke about it before about like how I've done a couple of things with Slawn and Opaque, and I actually originally had thought that of Slawn when he first came kind of on the scene. I was like, this is fast fashion. There's going to be no longevity in it. But actually, after spending some time with him, getting to know him, that's when I started like trying to look more into that generation of artists that is coming up. When he did what really like drew my attention to him is when he did the Cause thing, the Cause ripoff, which I thought was just incredibly intelligent, so fucking smart as a marketing strategy, you know, because the way he did it and he posted it, it was just, I was like, I don't know, I'm still kind of in awe. I still think it should be like a huge case study for like this new generation of artists that's come up, which, you know, essentially Cause Brian Donnelly could have said, let's run with this like collab, or say, you know, this is misleading, which is essentially what he said. But either way, Slawn was going to win.
You're going to get an answer.
And I think it was a real shock to the art world to understand what kind of community or like the amount of people or draw that Slawn brings in. And this new generation of collector, this new generation of like this new audience that's come through, right? Which is essentially all internet based anyway. Right. And that's why I changed my point of view of being like, not even like falling into the realm of like some of the old heads that I've worked with or some of these graffiti writers, especially graffiti writers, more than like contemporary artists that I work with who seem to have a problem with it, right? They look at it and say like, well, you know, he's biting like a graph style, a throw up style. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, you know, we would go on the street and see things, or like have friends of friends of friends, have a bigger homie that's like doing something and like tagging, and that's where you would develop your own style and take inspiration from and be inspired from, right? But Slawn's on a generation, he's 26, dude. He's on a generation that swipes on his phone. His inspiration comes from everything globally. So to think that, you know, he's not going to get some sort of element of someone else within that is ludicrous to think. It's deluded to think that, like, you know, he's going to have like some sort of complete originality, but he's eventually, you know, developed that into his own. Right, and so I try and tell these old heads that, and I also find it incredibly ironic that from guys and women who have essentially come up through a disruptive medium, which is graffiti, and like, you know, 30, 40 years ago being shunned by traditional galleries, and you still in some parts of the day in some institutions do, but like, you know, have spent all this time being disruptive and have finally have like been accepted and it's become a bit more of the status quo now, right? That they want to have a go at a kid who is literally being equally disrupted within his own right, within his own generation, and arguably has his own integrity as well. Like, I've spent time with him and seeing him, and he is not a complete yes man. He's not saying yes to everything. He pick and chooses what he wants to do and what he feels comfortable with. And, you know, he's also a self-proclaimed troll before he's an artist, which I find amazing because it becomes all conceptual at the end of the day. And like in the how we receive information, which is through the internet, a lot of people receive it, especially that audience. It gains traction. It's not just the pieces that he's painting, and I also feel like the pieces that he's painting, he's arguably like looking to progress that. And
I feel like he has progressed a lot from what he was doing before. Like, he's changed. You can see it. And that's through experience and, you know, wanting to expand as an artist. I definitely see that within him.
He went in and did a hot air balloon. But yeah, going back to the cause thing and the pull of like the community, I think that really shot the art world, right? You know, Cause said something and then people went at him straight away. And I think a lot of the art market then was just, a lot of the art world was just like, oh, fuck. It's almost like a few years ago, Kai Cenat was going to give away a PlayStation in the middle of New York. And he warned the city. He was like, hey, you might want to get police down there. And they're like, for this internet kid? Nah, don't want to get the police. Dude, full-blown riot. He got smashed in the face with fire extinguishers. So, like, I feel like like, my generation and the generation, especially the generation before, I think mine, like, ours is like a middle child and on the cusp and kind of has some understanding or respect for it, you know, like, may not completely understand, but understand certain elements. But the definite generation before are really struggling to really resonate and understand the power and the pull of like these internet kids, who really are arguably artists in their own right. It's just they're working with like the platform that they've been given. We got given the streets, they get given social media, and as sad as that sounds to us, that's just what they grew up on. So I just, you know, you can't hate. I can't hate on it. You know, I think that's like, it's petty, it's a waste of energy. And, you know, I'm really impressed by what particularly like someone like Slawn is doing, you know, and I'm interested to see what other kids within that industry come up with. And I almost feel like they actually have to work a lot harder to keep longevity to it, right? Not let it be a fast fashion fad piece of art and like create some sort of legacy. I think it's actually much harder.
I think they've got, especially like Slawn's brought in one of his other colleagues. I think she was his assistant before, Tioni as well. She's incredible. And
oil painter,
she's, you know, she's developing. So he's conscious of his power and how he's developing, but also bringing people in. Also on his legacy as well, when he did the Bobo's Calf as well. So it's like, even when I talk to the industry heads in the space, and a lot of them have told me, oh, we don't really respect him. But I'm like, how can you not respect someone who's pioneering stuff in such a different way? It's like, I feel as though they would have disrespected Basquiat back in the day as he was starting out, but he's become this thing because they know that they have to get on these types of things to evolve. So I think that's a incredible
well, it becomes
shout to him.
bigger as well. Like my foster sister, like she's 22 or 22 now, and you know, she was like, "You're doing a show with him?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, I love him." She was like, "Actually, particularly, I love his wife, like his fiance." And I was like, "Oh, okay," you know. Because my sister's like young mixed race girl, and like I feel like I was just like, that's interesting to see the reach. But again, it's like, then you want to hope that people don't just tokenize him in certain spaces as well, like they did with Basquiat.
I don't think they are with him. I don't,
but like it's just like something always to like
to be conscious of.
Like, because like I say, like again, like numbers don't lie. When the majority, when you know, black artists only hold less than 5% of a market. And you know, it's just that's the thing that I like kind of want to focus on and fight. But yeah, traditional galleries and the traditional like format is a struggle right now. Because you also have like external factors, war, the blow up of AI. Because I know a lot of investors, a lot of people that spend money on art have saved their money to invest into AI technology and waiting for that bubble to burst. And you know, just the way the economy is in general, I know it sounds so cliche, but it has a direct effect on art, you know.
Yeah.
Interest rates going up, people think like, well, I'd rather have a roof over my head than a picture on my wall right now. Which is funny because art is what gives you joy.
Exactly.
At the end of the day. But they need to look to try and diversify.
Yeah.
Another thing is like another thing that I'm looking into a lot as well is like experiential, immersive experiences, right?
I think that's very important.
Hugely. Like I started doing some deep diving into it, and at the moment it's like a $90 billion industry, and by 2033 they see it being like a $1.3 trillion industry. You know, you got Mercer Labs in New York, you have Team Labs in Japan, which was one of the first one like years ago. But like I feel like in terms of like revenue and like generating money as well, they're like a kind of no brainer. They had the Van Gogh one, which I think was half a flop, but was also generating millions in ticket sales, and it's such a simple projection for mapping, like immersive experience, like just the potential there for something more immersive, because obviously people are not shocked as well, like even coming from street art and murals, like that is not as exciting anymore. You know, it just becomes kind of the norm. Like people want the next thing, right? Things they can touch, things they can be a part of,
smell
and
as
unfortunately things they can take Instagram photos with.
Exactly. I've seen many chicks love that for their background, say I was at such and such place.
But it's trying to find a balance, right? Another artist that I always like try and put people on, and I'm not necessarily a huge fan of her actual physical art, but again, you know, same as like with Slawn, sometimes it goes beyond. It's like more about like, what are you doing conceptually that I find like super impressive? And trying to like bridge your art and your integrity with business, and actually make it like something sustainable for yourself. Is CJ Hendry.
She's the one who does those sketches, and she did the crowns.
She does like crowns. She does pencil sketches, but she like, and I also love the fact that she like generates like a lot of money in sales through like some of her work and like immersive experiences that she does, but then she just piles it all back into the next project. That's a real artist to me. Like, does enough to survive and keep care of everybody around them, but like then takes that and then just pumps it back into their own project. But the fact that like, you know, I really love this idea that every time she does like some sort of event or exhibition or installation piece, it's always the interactive installation piece that is the focus, is the number one focus, because it draws all the attention. And these pieces, these like pencil pieces that she's done, these like sketches, hyperrealism, and you know, it's personal opinion, but I struggle with a lot of hyperrealism artists just because I'm like, I buy the photo. Like things that have like a little bit of texture or a little bit of like emotion to them, right? Like Connor Harrington or something like that, something that's not necessarily so clean. But that becomes the main focus, and then the sketches are secondary to that. But they become desirable because of this primary thing, which is like the interactive space, right? And then it's very smart in terms of like marketability, is that she has things that you can buy for like $5 to $20 to like then the print, and then something for like $100. Then she has the print that's like almost $1,000, and then
it's like
she has little sculptures that it just. There's a range, right? So it's accessible for everybody. But not only that, the event or whatever the thing she does is for free. It's not ticketed. It's like you can go there and do it. Like when she did this place in Dumbo and she had the whole thing like a bouncy castle. She did the Kef Dunes thing recently, and I went to that, and you had to kind of sign a waiver, and you're jumping all over this thing, and it was kind of a mock on Jeff Koons, who I can't stand that guy anyway. I can't stand his work, but I just like that. It's playful and fun. You know, and she does it without a gallery. It's all self-funded.
Which is so insane. And I think she's taken I always say it's like the Apple model sort of thing. It's like you go in the Apple store, it's free, but you get to touch the product, you get to buy something that's accessible, and eventually you will buy the MacBook or the iMac. It's like they get you at the smallest figures. Same thing with Lego. It's like you have the entry level piece, like making art accessible, making these products accessible. So I see her model and actually understand how she's building that out.
No, you're totally right. You're right. That is like the Apple model.
Do you think like artists need to be business people? A lot of the artists I speak to is that they struggle with the fact that, hey, I'm trying to be an artist and stay into my practice, But then I've got to think of the business ends. You know, how do they find that balance? Do they need managers, or they need to learn a little bit more about it?
I think a bit of both. Again, it goes back to like really just finding out what works. I know it sounds like a cop-out, but what works best for you? So going back to that institutional question we were talking about, it's like, well, where did you come from? What do you do? What's best for you? Like, what's your learning ability? Like, you know, almost like what's your love language, but like in terms of art. And I give you an example because there's certain people that I know that are incredibly talented. There's so many different levels because there's people that are incredibly talented in craftsmanship, but maybe not creatively, and then there's people that are creatively very conceptually talented, but like in terms of their craftsmanship they're not. So then they need to look at building a team, right? That people need to look about building a team to people to execute. And then I see like people like I give an example. I had like Dan Lamb's a friend of mine and we're doing some projects together. She does these cool crazy kind of like grotesque drippy sculptures, but they're arguably like very beautiful, like bright colors. She's someone who really inspires me. Just in case she lives in Dallas, and to just her mind in terms of how she presents herself in business is phenomenal. So she weirdly got in touch because she was talking to certain managers and maybe looking at a manager, and I spoke to her and she was so on her shit. She had everything planned out. She's like, yeah, I'll do this. This is how the day goes, and and I have this coming up, and I'm doing this, and like, you know, I've got this drop coming up, and I'm doing this, and this is how I do this. This is my studio practice. And I was like, oh, Dan, I was like, you don't need a manager. It sounds like you want an agent to get you work. Yeah. You know, there's certain people that I speak to, and I'm just like, you don't need a manager. You have your life in order. But then there's others that like, do struggle. Yeah. But then, because essentially that's what I do. So I work on various different levels with people. There's certain people that I will work with like full time. Like I like speak to every day and check in on them, or every other day. Like I got Hawks in Miami Ice that like I tend to work with in a more like intimate basis. And then there's other people that might bring me in and they're like, I don't want to look at this contract. I don't understand contracts. I don't want to do the negotiation. Can you like have a look and take care of it for me? And I'll do that. I'll negotiate the money side of things, because a lot of people don't like to negotiate the money side of things. Yeah. And also like there's certain artists I will be a buffer. Yeah. Right, where like I will be the bad guy, so they don't have to. Yeah. So it doesn't affect their reputation, or it doesn't affect like. You know, some people just feel uncomfortable in that situation. You know, and being in America, it's like a beneficial to me, because a lot of people think that the English guy's a villain anyway. Yeah. Right? So I hop on a call and I start talking about contract.
That's so weird. Sorry. I watched a documentary just about there always used to be an old English villain in all the films in the 90s. Yeah. So when you said that, I was like, oh shit, it's still prevalent in today.
Oh, dude, especially when I come on with a South London accent, they always think I'm just like, and then they see me, they think I'm straight out of Snatch. Yeah. and then I like, but so there's I find there's different levels. I feel like it's just like finding out. You really need to find out who you are, how you learn things, how you like things. I think it's always worth because what I've started doing a lot more is offering consultancy. Yeah. Right. So like I'll do like an hour or 2 hours with people, and we'll just like sit down and work out a plan. Because for me in particular, especially at the moment, I try and work out, like I categorize. I know I shouldn't categorize. It doesn't sound that great when I say it out loud, but like I categorize an artist into 3 disciplines for me that I work with, essentially in my industry or my circle of people. Is that like, are you a gallerist, a muralist, or a commercial artist? And either every artist does all 3 that I work with, or can do all 3, or like switches between. But okay, like I start by looking at what's your predominant income, like what. You know, are you an institutional muralist, and that's how you make your money, and like that's where you predominantly make your money, right? Or are you a gallery artist, you know, and you predominantly make your money from like fine art sales, or do you do brand collaborations? And then so like I look at like what's the top, right? But then I talk to you and I try and understand like, but what's your goal? Yeah. like, do you want to be stuck in that category, or like, you know, and then that may change year to year out. It'd be like, okay, cool, like 2027, we're going to really focus on you being a gallery artist. Yeah. Like that's where, but still do all these other disciplines.
Yeah.
So I try and work out that with certain artists as well. But I suppose I hate the idea of like, just get out there and do it.
the typical advice, yeah.
But it is, because everything is, you know, it's like art, it's bespoke, which is always funny because, you know, I say that when people come at me with like trying to work out the cost of something, and I'm like, dude, art is bespoke. It's very scalable. Yeah. Right? Tell me what you got and I'll tell you what you get for it.
I like that.
Yeah. That's the biggest hardship, and it's just, I find it so frustrating and so like banal to get into this like back and forth with certain clients when they're like, can you tell me how much that is? And I'm like, just tell me how much you got. Yeah. And I'll tell you what you'll get for it, or what you'll get for that. And I even do it into a 3-tier program, but I don't want this back and forth of like, I don't know what it is. And then I come back and I'm like, here, it's this. It's like, oh, we haven't actually got that. And I'm like, why don't you just tell me what you had?
Yeah. Because once you understand what they have, then you know, if you want to spend more to get this, then it works.
And I'll be completely honest and transparent. I hate the lack of transparency. Like, I don't want to play. Like, people that work at agencies, they just feel like sometimes they just feel like drones. Yeah. You know? Yeah. God love them, but what are they doing?
No, good. I mean, nearing to the end now, but I want to talk about In the Frame, you know, what's exciting about that? You know, tell me more about it.
Oh, In Frame. Yeah. So that's my kind of next project, is that, again, I think I was saying earlier on in the podcast, I'm trying to maybe push myself forward a little bit more. Again, and combine these things of like that I'm very appreciative of. I travel the world. I've been to over 90 different countries, and I can't think how many cities I've been to, but I was saying like there's pretty much, there's not many places in the world I can go and not know someone or know or have a relationship with someone that has a relationship with someone. And so the whole idea of In Frame, and I can't say who I'm necessarily working with on it right now because it's still in early stages, but essentially it's an art travel show. I don't know if you ever saw Anthony Bourdain, but I have access to so many artists who are like my very deep and close friends. Like I've like been in the trenches with them, I've painted with them, like been arrested with some of them, like, you know, and you know, had really great successes with some of them, been really fucked up with some of them, you know, and so I have like such a deep connection with a lot of these artists, and we get to travel and we get to see the side of cities and towns and countries that, you know, money or tourism couldn't buy you, right? And so essentially it's an art travel show. I just like really romanticize it, but it's essentially an art travel show. And a good example of that is like we went and shot this for the concept piece that we had to present to the production company is we shot Miami. And the reason I wanted to shoot Miami is that I've been going to Art Basel for 15 years, right? I've seen Wynwood evolve from a point of like not being able to get cigarettes or a beer for a mile to like having tour buses down there now. We used to like get run out and run across by police for still doing graffiti and stuff, and it just used to be like rough down there, and now it's become this like mecca for people, and it's like less about the art and more about being seen. And I was so jaded by the pretentiousness, flashy cars, like Miami always had this, like gave me this ick, you know. I just felt like Craig David would be playing in the background, and like just everything's white, and I had a really horrible impression, and I was so jaded just because of Miami Art Basel. And then Hox, who I work with down there, was like, please come see my Miami. Like there's so much more to it that you don't see. And so I went and spent a couple of weeks with him a few years ago, and he took me kayaking, and like there's all this nature there, and then like there's all these like different like food spots and bar spots, live music. And it really changed my perspective. And I'm thinking like, fuck, I'm so lucky that I get to have this like kind of access all areas. And so like that's essentially what the show is like it's like artists is an untapped guy, because artists are always on the forefront of the culture within a city anyway. They create it, they establish it, and then it kind of like takes on from there. I mean, Winwood is actually the great example.
Yeah.
So it's that, and then also like, you know, being behind the scenes more and getting to understand like artists more, just because they are able to be a little bit more vulnerable with me and like break down like certain barriers, you know. I mean, Hox is another great example. When we shot the concept piece, you see him, he's laughing, he's talking, he's opening up. And if you see certain videos that people have shot of him before, he's very rigid because he just doesn't feel comfortable. So it's like, yeah, that's essentially what In Frame is, and that's what I'm very excited about.
I really love that, and it's just made me remember the stuff I watch on YouTube. So it's like there's this guy, I can't remember his name, flew out my head, but it's called Best Food Review Show Ever. And he's in every country.
Is that the guy with the red bandana?
Yeah. So he's like trying food from Bali, Nigeria, Ghana. I'm just like, this is so fascinating. I'm experiencing it with him. And I think that because we want to travel, we want to buy art, but I think telling stories with artists in different territories is such an amazing idea. So I definitely look forward to, you know, seeing
it's amazing.
That.
I mean, that is essentially, that's one piece of advice that I would always like tell people is, and I know it's difficult, you need money, right? But like as artists, travel, sleep on couches, like that's what I did for so long. It's just like, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone, just like turn up to events, meet people, become like immersed into the community. And that's another thing I wanted to showcase anyway, just like really strong small communities. You start reaching out. That's especially with social media now, that's what people do. Like the amount of people have like, you know, we were chatting through social media, and that's how we met and got connected, right? And I know it sounds so cliche, but then you could do that and travel and do like an exchange thing and be like, hey, fuck it, I'm gonna take a 72-pound flight to like Barcelona, like come meet you and like crash, let's go paint together, like you know, just like open up the world of collaboration again. You know,
love that. Final question. You know, artists looking to enter the space, be successful, finding that balance, you know, what advice would you give them to, you know, lock in and make it?
I think it's understanding, like, because, you know, like you said, success. I think, like, first of all, understanding what does success look like to you? What does success look like to you? Do you want to be in certain galleries, certain institutions, certain museums? Do you want certain people to collect your work? Do you want to collaborate with certain brands? Like, where do you find that you fit in? And that could change. But I feel like setting some sort of goal first to work to, and then understanding and basically working backwards, right? You're like, I want to be there. Okay, how do I get there? And then you like look at people before you and like step backwards. And really don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions to anyone. I have people reach out to me a lot, and I don't mind spending time, you know, like with people, and like I ask questions all the time to certain people. I'm like, oh, how'd you get that? How'd you do that? Or like I see things and I'm like, okay, how do I want to work that out. And maybe that has something to do with my OCD brain. Like I do understand. I'm currently reading a book called The O in OCD, and it's just about the obsession stuff, about like working things out and having to have an understanding. But I think doing that and really getting yourself out there, like I luckily feel like very blessed, although I had to go to Paris to be on the streets to really still, but like really like just turning up to events. And I did that here. I started here. I would go to every gallery event, every art event, any like collaborative event, whether it be a branded event, I would like just turn up and keep turning up and keep turning up. And then you meet the same people over and over again. You become a familiar face, and you build a community. I think you build a community in person. That's how I see it, but I also do understand that like there is this whole world of social media that like, and I sound like a fucking boomer when I say that, but I just, like I said to you, I just see this like comeuppance of like art being consumed that way and a community being built that way that I really don't have an understanding of fully. But I know it's there. But from where I'm from, like being in physical spaces and events and constantly having your face seen, I did it here, and then it like the things slowly grew for me. You know, as I became more successful, like, and I was able to travel more and more and more, and then I was actually invited places more and more. Like that network just expanded, and then I turn up more places, you know, like I've spent the last couple of years like really being focused in Asia, you know. So I think it's just like working out what your goals are and working backwards from that. It sounds like a real cop out.
No, it makes sense though. I always say, like, you know, think of the big concept and the idea, and then you can figure out the pieces to get there. And then you know where the starting point is actually to that success. And I definitely think on the showing up to events side of things, I find it valuable. I just show up everywhere, network with people. It's not even like the big person you're trying to meet. It's usually those micro ones that you see. That's the step that leads to something.
And I also feel like if you don't know what your thing is yet or where you sit, that's okay. I genuinely, you know, when I started monetizing, actually making money from this industry and, like, you know, from art, my own art, or like being part of the art market in terms of manager or curator or production, and I was my early 20s, but then I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't really understand who I was and understand what I was doing until I hit like early 30s.
Yeah. So
it took a decade for me to like be like, oh no, this is what I do. And this is how I do it, and I'm fine with that. But I'm then constantly reinventing. You know, like now I'm like moving into writing and TV, and I'm really heavily into writing. I feel like I did the introduction to D-Face's book last year or the year before, and you know, a lot of my Instagram and social media posts always have some sort of like, they're always politically charged in some way. At the moment, I'm very focused in the misrepresentation of women within our industry, or the mistreatment of women, for sure, in our industry. And I'm really hoping that men finally understand the power that women harness more than we do. So yeah, I feel like don't be scared of reinventing, but like starting with a goal. I think it is literally starting with a goal. Like having some ambition.
Yeah, no, amazing. Thank you, Louis, for joining this podcast, man. Really appreciate your time, man.
No, I appreciate it. Sorry, I think I waffled on.
No. I think
in certain places. I hope there's like certain things that you might be able to actually.
This was a valuable podcast, so definitely, you know, really appreciate that.
No, yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Cool.